You ever feel good doing something that's quietly destroying you? It's not pain that ruins men. It's pleasure. Silent, warm, socially acceptable pleasure. The kind that kisses you while it kills you. The scrolling, the sugar, the porn, the casual hookup, the lazy validation loop of likes, messages, meaningless stimulation. You tell yourself it's just a break, but breaks become habits, and habits become who you are. And one day, without a scream, without a warning, you don't recognize the man in the mirror because he looks calm, but he's sedated. Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. He wasn't being poetic, he was giving you a map. Every craving, every distraction, every time you say just one more episode, it's not about desire. It's about anesthesia. You're numbing, not because you're weak, but because you're running from a shadow you've never been taught to face. That shadow. It's the part of you that's been watching your life go silent while your dopamine stays loud. It's the part that remembers what you were before the noise, before the addictions became rituals, before pleasure became a leash. Let's be brutally clear, most pleasure today is engineered to hijack your nervous system, not nourish it. You're not choosing it, it's choosing you. Do you really think you're the one who decided to scroll for 45 minutes after midnight? You didn't choose that. You were pulled into it because these systems, the apps, the ads, the content, they don't care about your soul. They care about your attention. And they learned that the easiest way to steal a man's attention is through pleasure that feels earned but costs nothing. But here's what Jung understood. Every time you reach for false pleasure, you're avoiding real power. And real power? It doesn't feel good at first. It feels lonely. It feels cold. It feels like facing your own silence and realizing, this is who I am, when no one's watching. You see, the man you want to become? He doesn't live in comfort. He lives in clarity. But clarity isn't pleasurable. Clarity hurts. Clarity strips. Clarity removes the dopamine veil and says, look, here's what your life has become. Not because you're broken, but because you've been drugged by what feels good. Let that hit. Let it sting. Let it make you uncomfortable, because discomfort is the birthplace of all masculine transformation. You weren't made for sedation. You were made for vision. And every moment you trade discomfort for dopamine, you're not avoiding pain. You're avoiding purpose. So pause. Look at your day. What do you run to when you're tired? What do you seek when you're overwhelmed? That's your God. That's your compass. That's the lie you've been worshiping. Carl Jung didn't write about pleasure like a philosopher. He wrote about it like a surgeon, cutting into the soul of modern man and saying, what you call freedom is actually slavery to comfort. And comfort is not your friend, it's your coffin. In the next part, we'll explore why your shadow, the part of you you've never wanted to face, is the only path back to real strength, freedom, and authority over your own life. But first, ask yourself this without flinching. What's the pleasure you keep coming back to, even though you know it's stealing something from you? Write it down, say it out loud, or better, drop it in the comments, not for views, not for likes, for the man who reads it and realizes he's not the only one bleeding in silence. So what is the shadow? It's not some mythical darkness or demonic part of you. It's the truth you've buried, the rage you silenced, the hunger you denied, the ambition you laughed off as too much. It's every part of you that made others uncomfortable, so you amputated it to be accepted. But amputations don't heal the wound, they just hide it. And Jung's genius was this. He didn't tell you to destroy the shadow. He told you to meet it, because the shadow, when ignored, becomes your master. But when faced, becomes your power. You ever wonder why the things you crave the most are the things that hurt you? It's not because you're broken. It's because your shadow is starving. And your shadow doesn't want sugar. It wants significance. It doesn't want dopamine. It wants dominion. over your choices, your direction, your voice. But because you're afraid to feel your real power, you keep reaching for the fake kind. You keep chasing pleasure that gives you a hit of aliveness, while making you more hollow with every hit. Let me tell you something raw. The shadow will not leave you alone just because you ignore it. It will follow you. It will sabotage your relationships. It will whisper in your cravings. It will speak through your addictions, because the shadow is not evil, it's exiled. And like every exiled part, it wants to be seen, not judged, not fixed, integrated. Carl Jung said it best: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You think fate is why you keep ending up in the same loop, the same late-night regret, the same bad relationship, the same burnout and reset cycle. It's not fate. It's your unconscious running the show. And the longer you ignore it, the more seductive false pleasure becomes. Because it's not pleasure you're addicted to, it's avoidance. Avoidance of truth, avoidance of silence, avoidance of the version of you that's been screaming under the surface. Let me ask you something dangerous. When's the last time you sat in silence and didn't reach for your phone? No music, no podcast, no scrolling, just you? Most men can't do it for 5 minutes. Not because they're weak, but because they've never practiced facing themselves. They don't know what they'll find, so they sedate. And slowly, they forget who they are without stimulation. But you're here. And if you're still watching, it means some part of you is sick of escaping. Some part of you is hungry for clarity. That hunger? That's your shadow knocking on the door. And if you open it, really open it, what you'll find is not destruction. It's fire, not chaos, but raw masculine energy that's been suppressed by comfort and social training. You don't need more pleasure. You need a confrontation with yourself. Because here's what no one tells you. Real power doesn't come from dopamine. It comes from depth, and depth is forged in silence. We'll go deeper into the price of running from silence, and how pleasure isn't just numbing you. It's making you forget how to suffer well. And without suffering, there's no strength. There's only sedation. You know what's more dangerous than pain? Untouched pain. Pain that was ignored, softened, covered in smiles and self-help quotes, turned into "I'm fine" when you were anything but. That pain doesn't go away. It festers, it metastasizes, and the longer it stays untouched, the more it demands a host, so you become it without even knowing. Not by crying, not by breaking, but by numbing. That's what fake pleasure really is, a syringe full of silence. It makes you stop asking questions. It makes you tolerate jobs you hate, relationships that drain you, a body you've neglected. Because it gives you just enough of a high to pretend you're okay. Just enough of a hit to skip the mirror one more day. Jung understood this better than anyone. He said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And he was right. You ever notice how easily we justify our distractions? I deserve it. It's just a break. I'll get back on track Monday. But Monday never comes. Because the thing you're running from isn't in your schedule. It's in your psyche. And no amount of porn, junk food, Netflix, or dopamine-drenched scrolling will silence it. It's in your breath. It's in your bones. It's in your insomnia. And it will keep clawing through your surface until you finally listen. Here's the paradox. You're not addicted to pleasure. You're addicted to relief. And relief without resolution is the slowest kind of death. You don't even notice it's happening. Because dying men don't scream. They fade. Let me offer you something darker and more honest. You don't heal by numbing pain. You heal by meeting it like a man. Not to conquer it, not to fix it, but to listen to what it's been trying to tell you all these years. Pain is information. It's a compass, not one that points to comfort, but one that points to truth. And every time you numb it, you reject the exact message you need to reclaim your fire. You want to feel strong again? Stop chasing stimulation. Start building tolerance, not to more chaos, more noise, more dopamine, but to silence. To sitting in a room with your own thoughts without running from them. Because that is where real strength is forged. In the quiet, in the stillness, in the crucible of discomfort that most men have spent their lives trying to avoid. Let me be clear. Discomfort is not your enemy. Distraction is. And modern life is a buffet of distractions designed to keep you numb, weak, and dependent. Not because you're incapable of greatness, but because numb men don't rebel, they don't rise, they don't protect their purpose. They outsource it to whatever feels good in the moment, and if you do that long enough, you stop needing meaning. You just need your next fix. You stop being the man who builds. You become the man who scrolls, the man who waits, the man who once had fire, but traded it for a flickering screen and false pleasure. Will expose the real reason pleasure feels good, and how most men are unknowingly seducing themselves into slavery. Because not all highs are harmless. Some are prisons dressed as rewards. Let's stop lying. Pleasure doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels like escaping, like finally getting away from the pressure of your own expectations, from the voice in your head that keeps whispering, you should be doing more. You should be stronger. You should have been further by now. So you click, you scroll, you eat, you swipe, you chase. Not to feel joy, but to feel nothing. Because nothing is better than guilt, better than fear, better than failure. But here's the trap. The more you run toward pleasure to escape yourself, the more you lose the only self that can lead you out. You know what modern pleasure really is? Self-abandonment on autopilot. It's a man leaving the throne of his own mind and letting algorithms, habits, and emotions rule in his place. You still wear the crown, but you haven't ruled in years. Because ruling requires discipline, stillness, confrontation. It requires saying no when everything in you is screaming yes. Not because you hate pleasure, but because you know that pleasure without principle always leads to collapse. Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists, what you look at disappears." But most men don't look, they hide. Behind distractions, behind justifications, behind tiny pleasures that chip away at their power, one click, one bite, one lie at a time, until they forget what it feels like to choose something deeper. Let me make this clear. Pleasure is not the enemy. Escapism is. Because when you use pleasure to escape, you teach your nervous system a brutal lesson. That presence is painful. That stillness is dangerous. That you only deserve relief, not rain. And over time, you become a man who can't sit still, who can't breathe deeply, who can't be alone in a room with himself without needing a screen, a song, a stimulant. That's not self-love. That's self-fracture. And here's where it gets worse. You start needing more to feel less. More stimulation, more sex, more noise, more chaos. Why? Because your baseline was never peace, it was numbing. And once you build a tolerance to numbness, you start needing destruction. Not in an obvious way. You don't go out and ruin your life. You just slowly kill your edge. You take the job that pays well but rots your soul. You date the woman who's safe but doesn't move you. You stop lifting, stop writing, stop risking, and convince yourself this is what maturity looks like. It's not. It's domestication, and it's killing you quietly. You think you're being stable, but you're just sedated, not by force, but by false reward. And if that doesn't scare you yet, it should. Because the most dangerous prison isn't the one you fight to escape. It's the one you decorate. Now I'll show you how to break that loop. How to feel again, not just survive. Because once you reclaim your relationship with pain, you don't fear it anymore. You use it. And in doing so, you become undeniable. Here's the truth most men never confront. You weren't made to feel good all the time. You were made to feel deeply, to carry weight, to burn with direction. But somewhere along the line, You started chasing what felt easy instead of what felt real. And now, you don't feel alive. You feel distracted. You laugh, but it's numb. You succeed, but it's hollow. You love, but it's careful. Because everything in you has been rewired for relief, not resonance. Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And that's what modern pleasure is, avoidance in high definition. Because facing your soul, that's uncomfortable. That's messy. That's silence with no soundtrack. That's shame with no filter. That's rage with nowhere to run. But on the other side of that pain, power. Not the kind that dominates, the kind that anchors, because once you stop numbing, once you stop escaping, you realize something wild. You don't need more. You just need to feel you again. You need to hear the thoughts you've been drowning out with content. You need to feel the sadness you've been suppressing with dopamine hits. You need to sit in the tension of being unchosen, misunderstood, unseen, and not move, not flinch, not sedate, because only then do you begin to earn your masculinity back. Most men today, they've confused control with strength. They think being a man is about suppressing feeling, when in truth, it's about holding it like fire, contained, focused, alive. You want power? Then reclaim your ability to suffer. Reclaim your ability to sit in craving and not be owned by it. That's what Jung meant when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You're not broken. You're just on autopilot, and it's time to wake up. You don't need another video, another hit, another girl, another win. You need to remember. Remember that your soul was not designed for comfort. It was designed for becoming, and becoming hurts. But it also sets you free, so here's your line in the sand. Stop escaping. Start choosing. Start breathing through the scene. Start creating from pain instead of hiding from it. Start showing up unmedicated. Because the world doesn't need another man who feels fine. It needs a man who feels everything and still moves forward anyway. If this hits something in you, write it. Drop a comment. What have you been using to numb? What's the one thing you know you need to face but keep avoiding? Because your story might just be the lifeline another man is waiting for. Let's speak it. Let's burn through the lies. Let's rise out of sedation and back into sensation. Because numbness isn't peace, it's the beginning of decay. But if you can feel again, even if it hurts, it means you're still alive, still here, still in the fight. And maybe that's all you needed to remember today.